of shadows.
Hi my angels, it's Hailey Reese and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am so excited that you guys are here and I hope that you are having an absolutely fantastic morning, afternoon, or night, whatever it is for you, when this video finally reaches you. You guys, today's video is one that I am so excited to be making because I feel like it's been a hot minute since I've done like a story time style video here on my channel, and that is exactly what today's video is. I've actually talked about this a lot in the past, but doing what I do here on YouTube is really a big conversation starter when I'm talking to people or getting to know people, and they either ask about what I do for a living, or they ask about my channel, or anything in that nature or that realm. And when I talk about the fact that I grew up in a haunted house, that I go ghost hunting, that I've had a ton of paranormal experiences, it always raises great conversation. I've found in my experience that people either have a story, know someone who's had a story, or are interested in hearing some stories. So recently, I was actually outside and I got to talking with one of my neighbors. Naturally, my YouTube channel got brought up and she ended up sharing a story from her childhood that had me so freaked out. I was like, do you mind if I bring it on my channel and share it with my viewers? And she was like, go for it. So that is the story that I'm gonna be sharing with you guys today. It's absolutely crazy and I can't wait for you guys to hear it. Before we get into today's video though, I would just very quickly like to thank today's video sponsor, Harry's. Some people think of Harry's as just a men's brand, but they don't make razors for men. They make razors for a close, comfortable, smooth shave at a fair price, no matter who you are. When I first got my Harry's razor set, I was so impressed by the quality of the blade and how smooth my skin was afterwards. Harry's has literally been my go-to razor ever since first trying it because I love that I can get a close, smooth, comfortable shave at a really affordable price of just $2 per refill. I love that I can get my razor refills delivered straight to my door, but even beyond that, I absolutely love that Harry's support great causes, as they give 1% of their global sales to nonprofit organizations that provide mental health care to veterans and LGBTQ plus youth in need. And Harry's is passionate about providing fair price razors for everyone. No pink tax, no outrageous price tags. Just premium quality at an extremely affordable price, which is incredible. Redeem your trial set for just $3 when you head to harrys.com/HaileyReese. You'll get a 5-blade razor, a weighted handle, a blade cover, and their foaming shave gel. It's an incredibly great deal, but act fast while supplies last and head to harrys.com/HaileyReese. I will have it linked at the very top of my description. And thank you so much to Harry's for changing my shaving game and also sponsoring today's video. But without further ado, let's get into today's terrifying story. Alright, so this actually happened a couple of weeks ago and I've been thinking about this story ever since because it's that crazy. So basically, a couple of weeks ago, Tyler and I were outside. It was a beautiful day. We were walking our dogs and just kind of casually enjoying the nice summer day. Now at this point, one of our neighbors was outside doing like some yard work and some gardening work, and she wound up starting up a conversation with us. Now we've never spoken to this particular neighbor before. In fact, we've only really spoken to like neighbors from 3 households on my street, if that makes sense. We moved in literally like 2 months before the pandemic hit, so we weren't really doing much socializing with the neighbors, and honestly we spend a lot of our time indoors when we aren't walking the dogs, so it's not unusual for us to have spoken to her before. But anyways, she ended up saying hi to us and walked over and like at a distance was asking us, you know, how we like the neighborhood, how long we've lived here. We were talking a little bit about our dogs, and if you guys have been on my channel for a while, you guys would know that Ace doesn't do well with people, especially strangers. Like, he's a rescue who doesn't particularly like anybody. So at this point, we got to talking about what Tyler and I do for a living and where we're from originally, etc. And at this point, I started talking about the fact that I have a YouTube channel. Now, whenever I bring up the fact that I have a YouTube channel, people often like to assume that it's like beauty related or lifestyle related. So when I tell them that I like focus on spooky content, it raises a really interesting conversation. So at this point, she started asking me questions about whether or not I truly believe in the paranormal. Naturally, the conversation shifted to how I grew up in a haunted house and my family has had paranormal experiences for a super long time. And at this point, Tyler actually exited the conversation and went to take the dogs inside because Ace was going crazy. So now it was just her and I outside chatting. Now, when I was talking about the haunted house, it was at this point that her demeanor kind of shifted. And she started asking me about like our particular experience in that home. And one question that she asked me specifically was if we had anything dark or negative or scary in that home that I grew up in. And this is when I told her about the different like spirits that were in the home and all of that kind of stuff. At this point, she asked me if I had a little bit of time that afternoon to listen to a story that she experienced when she was a child and her family had moved into this farmhouse. And I said, absolutely. So at this point, I go up on her porch and I'm sitting on one of her porch chairs. She's sitting on the other, and she proceeds to tell me like one of the craziest stories. She said that at the time of this experience, she was around 8 years old and she was going to be moving into a new home with her family. Now, this home was in like a rural area. There wasn't really any neighbors. The area was next to a really small, like old town, and the family was just really excited to have all of this land. Now, moving into this house would be her mother, her father, her younger sister, and her grandmother. So this was the family that was moving into the house. Now, she said that the house was very, very old. It had like a very old farmhouse vibe to it, and that she was a little freaked out as a little girl initially walking in there because it was just kind of spooky. She explained it like the floors would creak and the walls would creak, and there were just like old home sounds and noises. And so initially, when she had a bad feeling as a little girl the first night in her bed, her parents just wrote it off as it's an older house, you'll get used to it. As the weeks went on with all of them living there though, she said that this like ominous feeling was just always in the air. That despite being young, she felt like there was something or someone else in the house. But her parents kept telling her, you'll get used to it, it's just an older house. And they would explain all these different sounds and noises to her as like things that made sense. But shortly after living there, she wasn't the only one who started having strange experiences. She says that she remembered overhearing a conversation with her parents and her grandmother where the grandmother was saying that she woke up to a woman at the bottom of her bed and that this woman did not feel good. At this point, she said that her parents started to think that maybe she was just getting old and that she was seeing things that weren't really there. And to be honest, they were more concerned about her health at this point than they were of anything being in the house. But in the weeks that would follow, her as a little girl and her grandmother would start having really strange experiences. Both of them would wake up in the night to horrifying nightmares. They would wake up to this woman at the bottom of their beds, and this woman supposedly was dressed in older clothing, had long dark hair, and she always looked angry. Like, the way that my neighbor explained it to me was that this woman would look at her like she had done something to her. Now, at first, she said that the woman would just stand there at the bottom of the bed and wouldn't say anything. She would just stand there and stare at them in an angry manner after they would wake up from these bad dreams. But as time went on, eventually the woman would start saying things along the lines of, you're not welcome here, get out of my house, this is my house. So she was becoming absolutely terrified. She didn't want to sleep in her own bed, and she didn't want to go sleep in her grandma's bed because her grandma was the only other person experiencing this too. Now, at this point, she said that her parents thought that she had heard her grandma talk about this woman that the grandma was seeing, and that's like her childhood imagination got the best of her after that. So her parents weren't making any steps or taking any steps, to cleanse the house or clear the house or even move. Like, they were so dead set on staying in this house that they thought their daughter had just heard grandma's experience and the grandma was just getting old. Now, strange things started happening in the house. Rats were dying left, right, and center in their house. She said that the home always smelled like death. Like, every day they were finding another dead rat. No matter what the family tried to do to get rid of these rats and like to try to solve why they were all dying in the house, more and more rats were coming every single day in the house. She said that one night she woke up in her bed, saw the woman at the bottom of it. The woman said, "You need to get out of my house." And then a rat scurried on top of her bed and like squeaked through the room. So now at this point, the grandmother and her are experiencing this woman who doesn't want them in the house. They're having terrifying nightmares. Rats are coming like left, right, and center and dropping dead with no explanation. And there's just like this really eerie feeling in the house. But her parents still weren't experiencing anything, so they didn't believe it to be anything more than what I'd already told you they thought. But eventually, the grandmother would start freaking out and complaining of the fact that this woman said to her that if they didn't get out of her house, she was going to kill them. At this point, her parents are starting to think that the grandmother is actually losing it. So instead of taking her claim seriously, they bring her to the doctor. The doctor checks her over, does a mental and physical evaluation, and says despite her age, she's in good health, good condition, that there's nothing for them to be worried about. Now, her parents were explaining to the doctor, she's making all of these outrageous claims. She's claiming that there's this woman at the bottom of her bed that says that if we don't leave this new house, she's gonna kill us and all this stuff. And the doctor's like, "I don't know what to tell you. You know, she passed my evaluations." So they bring the grandmother back home, and the grandmother continues to complain, saying that this woman is getting angrier and angrier. She says that it's her house, it's her land, and if they don't leave, something very bad is going to happen. Now here's where the story gets absolutely crazy, because after weeks and weeks and months of the grandmother complaining that if they don't leave this house, something horrible will happen, she would be found dead in her bed. She said that the family would live in this house for 3 years, and over those 3 years, any pets that they had would mysteriously die. The house always had this weird smell of death as the rats kept dying all in the house, that they would have these horrible nightmares. Eventually, her parents would start to believe that there was something horribly wrong with the home, when their finances would deteriorate, their mental and physical health would deteriorate, and all of these creepy, awful things just kept on happening. Now, my neighbor told me that she only found this out years later, like when she was grown up, a grown adult. She found out that someone in the town over had told her parents that that home had an interesting history, that there seemed to be some sort of a curse that a family back in the day put on the farmhouse. So her parents pieced everything together with everything that had been going on and what this person had told them in the town over, and they believed that the woman that they were seeing was the previous owner of this home who wanted her home back. She said that the family would leave the house, but it would take years for them to regain like their good luck, if that makes any sense. And she is absolutely convinced that something to do with that house was hanging over her family's head for a while after, like residual energy. I literally told her that this sounds like something out of a movie. Like, it doesn't sound like something that your neighbor would casually have experienced. And what was so fascinating was going back and forth and sharing our haunted house experiences. They couldn't have been like further from one another. Like, she experienced true terror for the 3 years that her family lived in that home and her grandmother passed away. To this day, she deep down believes that her grandmother passed away from whatever was in that home, but a part of her always wonders if it truly was. But she says that after they moved out of the house, she never saw that woman again, and their family slowly rebuilt everything that was torn down during that time. I don't know, you guys, when she was telling the story, she had actual goosebumps on her arms, like when retelling the things that happened, and she just looked so terrified. Like, I could tell it was so real to her, the experience. And I don't know, it really freaked me out. Like, when I was laying in bed that night, I was picturing everything that she told me that happened and picturing it as if it like happened to me type of thing, like putting myself in those shoes. And I just can't even fathom at that young age how terrified she must have been and how frustrating it must have been to feel like your family doesn't believe you. I don't know. But even though she was so young, she says that she can see it in her mind as if it were yesterday, and that it was one of the most terrifying and traumatic experiences she has ever been through in her entire life. I don't know, I just wanted to share it with you guys because after I heard the experience, I was like, that story is absolutely crazy. It sounds like something out of a movie, and it fascinated me. So I wanted to share it with you guys and ask you guys, what do you think of her experience? Comment down below what you guys think of it. And that is basically it for today's video. Once again, I would just love to thank Harry's for sponsoring today's video. As I mentioned, you can redeem your trial set for just $3 when you head to harrys.com/HaileyReese. It's an incredible deal, but act fast while supplies last. I'll have the link at the very top of my description, and thank you so much to Harry's for sponsoring today's video. If you guys are new to my channel or you are just not yet subscribed but you do enjoy my content, I would seriously love it if you would go ahead and click that subscribe button, and please give this video a big thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Remember, my loves, do all things with kindness, and until next time, I love you.